Hello. So I thought I would do these series. I was going to do podcasts, but I don't know how to do them. So we're just videoing on my phone. And this is owners talking about their own experiences with their horses that may have gone through injury or had something wrong with it, and the rehab, but all the other things that comes along with having a horse that may not be the norm. So today I'm going to introduce you to Kelly, and she's going to talk about her horse Lizzie, who had kissing spine and did have the surgery, didn't it?
She did. Yeah,
It had. She went through a whole range of stuff to get where we are now. We would have done it with the horse, but Kelly also owns a little Welsh pony, so we know the camera and tripod would be knocked over because she would be very interested in it. So this is Kelly. She's the owner of Lizzie, and we're going to start and just talk about it. So the first thing I'm going to ask, I'm not going to talk so much. I'm going to let Kelly do all the speaking. Is just how she first noticed things that were different. How did other people perceive her horse? And how did she feel about her horse in that time? So over to you, Kelly. How did you first notice something wasn't right?
So I've had Lizzie 8 years since she was 6. And about 6 months into getting her, when I was riding her, she would feel like a hip would just drop a little bit sometimes, and she would just feel a bit unlevel behind. So I got the vet out at that point, and he actually x-rayed her hocks then, so when she was only 6, and found mild arthritic changes in her hocks, which at that point he wasn't that concerned about, and put her on the Epitalis foresight supplement.
All right, yeah.
But other than that, sort of wasn't worried, said, keep going, things will improve as she gets fitter and stronger. And I actually then became ill 6 months later. So Lizzie hasn't done a hard day's work since then, and it then took 3.5 years from that point, when I always had this niggling feeling something wasn't right.
Yeah.
But it took until she was then 9, nearly 10, to get the kissing spine diagnosis.
Yeah.
Where I always knew something wasn't right, but a lot was blamed on the lack of work Lizzie was in. She wasn't strong enough, she wasn't fit enough, I didn't do enough with her. And she always has had regular body work, she would regularly see the vet when I was worried she was lame. And other than the fact we knew she had some mild hock arthritis, no one was ever really concerned that it was like things weren't quite right, but no one was ever that worried that there was anything major going on. And I think because she didn't do a lot, she wasn't a competition horse, we just potted about really at home. It took a long time to really get anyone to listen to me that there was something worse going on, and that Lizzie definitely, it wasn't normal to have a 9-year-old horse that couldn't canter properly.
So did she come with a certain behaviour pattern already established, and so her normal was different to what maybe you'd experienced before with a horse? So was a lot of stuff just wrote off, oh, it's just her, or was it like sort of over time the behaviour patterns got worse, or what?
Yeah, I think because when you get them, you sort of assume like this is just sort of normal for her. Her previous owner had her a lot fitter than I did. So I think as she obviously was a lot less fit with me, and I think things maybe became more apparent with that. But she was always very good to ride. She didn't show any bucking or explosive behaviours, but on the ground she would, if she didn't like something, she would always explode quickly. It could be trying to wash her, put fly spray on. Her reaction would always be to rear or to try and get away from me. And that had been her from the start. So I never really questioned any different with that. That was just the normal for us. And those things did improve. Actually, they did get a bit better with time and patience and me sort of working out what she liked and didn't like. But she was always a spooky horse, which again I just thought was normal for her. If it was windy, rainy, I was trying to ride, I'd end up stuck at, on a circle at one end of the arena. And the same with lunging, she would have this sort of spooky, explosive behaviour, which was usually worse on the ground than it was when I was riding her.
Yeah.
But you know, she's got away from me lots of times in hand, and it just, I was just, to start with, I just thought it was her, and that she'd not really been quite what I'd expected.
Yeah.
But as time went on and other things improved, there was just always this niggle. This isn't, you know, this isn't her. It's not her. It's not just her personality. It's not, you know.
And did you doubt your own ability as a horse handler? Did you get told by others that you weren't being firm enough, or, you know, or...
Definitely, because, you know, Lizzie was, after retiring my 2 previous horses, Lizzie was meant to be sort of an easier horse. I'd lost a lot of passion for competing and things like that, so I just wanted a horse to enjoy, really. And I worked with horses as well at the time, so I never expected to find it difficult, but Lizzie would scare me on the ground with some of her unpredictable behaviours, and then you feel like, well, it's just me, isn't it?
Yeah, and I also think feeling scared of your own horse is quite a hard thing to admit for a lot of people, but it is scary. You know, if you've got a horse that you're walking along and suddenly you've got 2 hooves waving in, well, because it's safety, your own safety then begins to be questioned. So from the initial diagnosis of hock arthritis, how long was it until you actually started to get her back checked, and then the vet started discussing about what to do with the
It
back?
was about 3.5 years until I felt we got to the point where the vet was ready to do further investigations. And Lizzie went up to the vets and had x-rays. She had a hocks re-x-rayed and she had a back x-rayed as well. And that's when we found that her hock arthritis had got significantly worse, and she had kissing spine of quite a large amount of her back. And some of her spinous processes at that point, so she was 9 at this point, were very close together and were sort of at the point where they would be rubbing together. It was quite significant kissing spine, but the vet said to me, you know, we read the horse, not necessarily the x-ray. Horses can have bad x-rays but not bad symptoms, and I think because Lizzie never showed
typical
typical explosive symptoms that people are expecting, no one was really still convinced at that point that that was even really necessarily the problem. So, but we did at that point she had steroid injections in her spine, and I think she had a hocks injected with steroid then as well for the first time. And we had a rehab program then of lunging with sort of elastic bands and pole work and things like that to try, and I did quite a long lunging period before I got back on again. And I think we did that for about a year. And then the symptoms she did improve for a while. It was easier for her to canter again. And then everything just got worse and went back to how it was again. And I actually had a new saddle fitter come out, and she first said to me, Lizzie's not really the right shape to be ridden. There's nowhere really to put a saddle, which was a bit of a shock. But in other ways, I appreciated the honesty. And we tried a few different saddles on Lizzie, and I think by the second one, Lizzie just stood in the corner of my arena and just wouldn't walk. She just wouldn't move. And I blamed, because of my chronic health struggles, I blamed a lot on myself at this point. I was like, maybe I'm just not really good enough. If someone more capable was riding it, maybe it's just, she just doesn't do stuff because of me. Because no one was still that convinced the physical problems were that bad. So maybe it is just me. But the saddle fitter said to me, there's something else. There's something wrong with Lizzie. This isn't normal for her to react like this to a saddle. She said, I don't think it's you. I think there's something really wrong with Lizzie. Because she'd just stand there. She had her ears flat back and she would kick up at her belly and swish her tail. And that was just sat there with a new saddle on. And she was just... And nothing really improved from that point. I sat on her again a couple of times, and then she reacted like that to my own saddle, and I can't do this. I can't make her do this anymore. And then so that took us to when she went back to the vets and had a burn scan to try and work out whether there were any other issues that could be causing the problems.
Can I just stop? Just look at the facet joints down as well as the spinny. So did they look real deep at the joints as well, which I would assume were the bones?
They did, yeah. So she had a bone scan of a full body, because I think they were still expecting to find something else to be the problem.
Yeah.
So she came up with the hotspots, obviously, of her spine, of her SI, and of her hocks, and everything else appeared to be fine. So they're very much expecting her SI to be the problem area, but they decided to do a nerve block, and for it to be ridden before and after a nerve block, which one of the staff at the hospital actually rode her for. So it was a complete sort of clean process of someone else riding her. So I decided I'd prefer not to be involved. This lady actually got her trotting and cantering. It wasn't pretty, but without the nerve block. And after the nerve block, she cantered, and it was like watching a different horse. Yeah. And at that point,
just checking on time. Keep on going.
The vet realised that it was a spine. It was definitely a spine that was the problem, because her movement changed so much. And they then advised us that the best option for Lizzie would be to have surgery. And obviously Lizzie was already at the hospital at this point, because she'd stayed after a burn scan. So we were basically told we sort of had the hour to drive home to make the decision on whether to go ahead with the surgery or not. I don't think I fully understood what would happen in the surgery. I was just told it would probably give her the best chance.
Which is an owner, you just want the best for your horse, and if someone offers you an option of the best for your horse, and especially through a highly charged emotional time, you're going to choose what you think is best for the horse.
It was really hard, and it just it felt like the best decision I could make for at the time, really. So we went ahead, and she had the surgery done, and it was only when they then obviously found after the surgery that they said the spinal processes had actually started to remodel and were fusing together. So they removed T14, 16 and 18, and they did, I think, 5 or 6 ligament snips as well, which, when you realise kind of what they've done, all just seems quite horrifying. And it certainly does to me now as well. It's 4.5 years ago now, but it was done.
And hindsight is always a really good thing. If we could look back at what we would have done, or the people we know now to what we would have done then, if hindsight, none of us would be in a situation we're in. So, and I often say, if we keep looking back, we're never going to be able to look forward to the horse you have now, right in front of you, and how well she's doing. So it's a hard one. And often I always think owners, this is why I'm doing this, because owners feel so alone that they've failed, or they can't talk to anybody, or the professionals or their friends, or look down at them because they're not at the point of rehab where everyone else is at that point. But so this is very nice. That's why I like you to do this and speak about it. So she had ulcers as well, didn't she?
She did. So Lizzie had ulcers the first time before the surgery. I think probably about a year before she had them treated, and obviously they healed up, and we carried on, and we did the necessary management, and then her ulcers came back again after the stress of having the surgery. She massively struggles with vets, being treated, injections and things. So the routine of then, she obviously came home after 2 weeks, and it was a short box rest and things, but having the vet come out every other day to change her dressings and things was incredibly stressful for her. And within a couple of months of her surgery, she bit my bum one day while I was putting her rug on, and I knew immediately that her ulcers had come back. because it was just, you just know.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, yeah.
So she's always going to be prone to ulcers and things because living with chronic pain with arthritis, and then she's a horse susceptible to gut issues anyway. So we obviously have that battle. She did have her SI injected with steroids 6 months after as part of a rehab.
Yeah.
But that actually wasn't really that big a part of it was just another part of the problem, really. It came along with everything else.
And I think it's a really good thing with ulcers as well, because I always say if I meet a horse that has kissing spine or hock arthritis or ulcers, I will get them to check with their vets because them three always seem to come together. And also I really like the fact that you sort of acknowledge that ulcers is just not a one-time thing and it's treated and it's gone away. It's a lifetime thing, and if stress or changes in the grass or anything like that so I always say horses with ulcers, look to the behavior, and if the behavior starts deteriorating, then check and make sure that ulcers have not come back.
Definitely.
That's
the vet was actually, from my description of what had changed, was happy to sort of use like it sounds like ulcers have come back, once you've been through it and you know the behavioural signs to look out for it. It does soon become apparent they're struggling again, and it's all a long-term kind of part of it as well. It's not, you don't just get to that, well, they've had the surgery, you've done your rehab, everything's fixed, and you have this lovely, happy, healthy horse to live with.
It's never that easy.
If only.
I want to talk to you about what pressure did you feel under for you to be back riding as seen as a success in the rehabilitation of Lizzie?
So we were obviously given a plan from the vets, and we had a body worker to help with rehab and things. Lizzie actually had surgery just before COVID, so I actually felt quite alone in my rehab. But the vets they were a bit guarded with the prognosis, like this has been quite bad, but it was more, you're probably not going to be going out eventing, rather than there was always the expectation that she would be ridden again, and that plan was within 6 months for us. So I worked really hard on my rehab. I did everything I needed to do, and it got to 6 months and I thought, well, I'm not going to be getting on now. And I think I got back on the first time around 9 months, and it was not right for us. We were not ready at all, and we just carried on with our groundwork. But you always had, people would say to me, oh, you'll be back on her soon, or you'll be back on her soon, or it's going amazingly, you'll be back on her soon. And you always have this little kind of this thing sort of in the back of your brain, like that was going to be the last step, like that meant
that success. That was the success of
and
we were just talking about it before, that often when your horse has something which makes its behavior change so drastically, the last thing you and the horse remember before any surgery, before any rehab, is the horse was really unhappy and you were really unhappy, and you were both unhappy together. So this is the last memory that you and the horse have. And it's why often when I talk about rehabilitation, I will advise owners not to rehabilitate in a school. If the school was the issue, I'll advise owners even to maybe get someone who is nice and kind, so the horse and you can have a different perspective. But success is not riding. Success is a pain-free horse, and that is where if a horse never has to be ridden again, for it to be pain-free, then the owner must accept that, because it's horse first.
Definitely.
So that's what we were just talking about, that all success is deemed riding, but what is success for the horse? Just to be happy and pain-free. That for me is the big deal.
And we have got to that point now with a lot of help from Mary and Mary's lovely daughter Natalie, who is our trimmer as well. We actually, something I wasn't aware of at all as Lizzie went through the early stages of her rehab, was that Lizzie actually struggled badly with high-low front feet as well. Lizzie actually still wore front shoes when she had her surgery done, and and it wasn't something that was ever brought up by the vet or the farrier side. She's always had odd feet, and I was just basically told that was just her, and it was never raised as an issue.
Yeah.
And we were luckily, it was brought to our attention by a lovely trainer I was having groundwork lessons with, that this is not normal.
No.
Feet are not supposed to look like this.
They don't have symmetrical feet, but if you've got one heel this big and one heel that big, then there is something not right.
Yeah.
And I think when I first came in, I think this is like where I felt like everybody just kept stopping the dysfunction getting worse, but nobody was actually addressing the dysfunction and making her get better.
Yeah.
So the feet, she had one supposedly clubfoot and one not, and they were just stopping it getting worse, but it was still apparent, so her body couldn't be fixed with that. You were massaging the hamstrings, weren't you?
Yeah.
We can massage hamstrings until the cows come home. The hamstrings were not the issue, they were the after effect. And what I noticed in a lot of kissing spine horses, and what I noticed in Lizzie, in fact I'm so proud of the photographs I took today, is that her back was never a smooth line. She would have an angle, so I call it the night tick, and it was something that I was working to change, and once it did change, it's never ever really came back.
Yeah, it's like we finally got to a point where we have maintenance rather than before we were just up and down on this roller coaster where things would be going better, and I'd have the hope would build up again, and then it would all backslide again, and it's taken us a really long time. I say she's 4.5 years after the surgery now to really get to a place where we can keep things quite stable.
Yeah, and I think they're always in recovery, you know, like I don't think they ever get back to the best because they never had a best to begin with.
Yeah.
And like, you know, sort of 18 months after she started to go a little bit wrong again, and you had to get her hocks injected. But the thing when you have a really good team around you is the recovery is so much quicker. So you can spot it. You spotted it, and we were like, oh yeah, I'm not going to come and body work or anything. Go straight to the vets. Let's help her, and then we can do it. And you are like such a good owner. You're so diligent with your exercises. And we change them up as things goes, as sort of things progress. If something doesn't look right, we'll change things up. But I think you've come to quite a happy place with Lizzie.
Yeah, I think that's
she
one
tells
of
you
the
what she wants.
changes for us is that I found a lifestyle and kind of for her that makes her really happy. She's happy, you know, doing what she does, which is 99% of the time being a horse with her little best friend, and also I can do everything I need to do with her without any issues now. We both are happy not riding, and we enjoy our groundwork more, and we're just happier without the stress and the pressure as well.
Well, that's it.
We're both just so much happier.
You've now surrounded yourself with people who go, you don't want to ride? That's fine. Who cares? You know, and I think taking that pressure, and also I think having that thing of you don't feel so alone. So like today, you know, like Lizzie sometimes like, I don't want to be caught. But it's like I said, she may have a past history with being caught as something not pleasant. So she's just like today, and I was like, it's okay. Look at, who cares? And I was going to do a video on her about the neck, but I was like, you know what, today I don't think she's feeling it. So I think if we all really truly put our horses first, I think we become a lot happier because we meet the people who also put the horses first. And she's in such a good place, and she's happy doing. And I think do you feel a lot happier?
Definitely.
Even not doing all the things that you wanted to do like years ago.
Yeah. It's life with Lizzie is none of the things I expected it to turn out to be. You know, we don't do any of the things really we'd imagined, but none of it matters anymore. And I think you say when the people around you don't make you feel under pressure or make you feel judged because you're not doing those things, and because I choose not to ride her, and my horses live quite a sort of free range lifestyle and make a lot of their own choices. It's actually she's so much happier, and then I'm happier because she's not stressed, and
yeah,
I worry about her a lot less now, and I just get to enjoy her for who she is.
yeah.
And I always say she's been by far my biggest teacher, despite having had horses since I was tiny. I wouldn't change her for anything, despite the whole journey. I would not swap her for anything because it's changed the whole way I think about horses, and I wouldn't go back and do that differently.
No, and I also think as well, however bad we feel in that moment, whatever's happening, they are here to teach us something. And whether it's, you know, like, I always think everything falls into place, like, you know, sort of maybe you doing this video might help somebody's who's you 4 years ago, and they're like getting pressured that they have to put the horse in the passoa and lunge in circles. Don't ever do that if your horse has got kissing spine. But yeah, maybe you can help somebody that they don't have to go through the couple of years of struggle that you went through, that it's okay to say stop. And it's okay to listen to your horse, and it's really important that we do listen to our horses. So anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, do what you and your horse want to do. Don't follow anyone else's plan and journey. Like, do what. And
don't wait for the explosive behaviour. There's a lot more subtle behaviour than the explosive.
Things. Don't let it take you years to convince, like, get people to listen to you. Just keep at it. Don't give in. If somebody believe your horse and just keep at it.
Believe your horse, and if somebody's not listening to what you're saying and what your horse is telling you, then change that person, because there will be somebody who will, you know, think you're credible and not just think, oh, you're just being a airy fairy horse owner that doesn't want to ride.
Too soft on the horse.
You can never be too soft on your horses. No. Jesus, I run around with a yellow duster in my field, so Anyway, do you want to add anything else?
I don't think so.
That was
just have lovely people like Mary to look after your horses.
Oh, and as long as you're a lovely person like Lizzie to own horses. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this one. Not sure, we've got quite comfy chairs, so not sure what the next one's going to be about, but if you've got any suggestions. And again, thanks to Kelly, because these owners do give their time for free. I don't pay them. Maybe, no. We'll not talk about that. But yeah, I couldn't do any of this stuff without owners. So yeah, bye. Well, now you're going to see my big love turning the camera off.